Hello, I'm Ron Strickland. Welcome back to Humanities 3541, Major American Authors. In this course, we've been examining works of authors from the High Modernist movement in American literature, writers who worked during the 1920s to 1930s especially. In this webcast, I want to say some things about a short story called The Guilded Sixbits by Zora Neale Hurston. In looking at this short story, I'm interested in how Hurston adapts a classical genre of literature, the pastoral, and also how she adapts archetypal elements of human relationships.
A common practice among high modernist writers was to adapt the themes and structures and other elements of older literary texts and to give them new twists. James Joyce does this in his novel Ulysses, for example, adapting Homer's epic poem The Odyssey for a modern setting with a modern theme. And Hurston draws on the tradition of pastoral for this story. The pastoral tradition stems from the ancient Greek poet Theocritus. Theocritus wrote his poetry at the court of Alexandria, but he had grown up in Sicily, and his poems show a longing for his boyhood home, and they set in tension an opposition between the country and the city that becomes a typical feature of pastoral poetry. Perhaps the most influential poet associated with pastoral is the Roman poet Virgil. Like the idylls of Theocritus, the eclogues of Virgil are poems about the love lives of simple country people, but they are also critiques and satires of the politics at court and of city life in general. Here's how the pastoral form is defined by the Princeton Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics. The pastoral is a fictionalized imitation of rural life, usually the life of an imaginary golden age, in which the loves of shepherds and shepherdesses play a prominent part. Its ends are sometimes sentimental and romantic, but sometimes satirical or political.
The Guilded Sixbits is not specifically a pastoral story, but it involves rural characters, poor people, African Americans, who are marginal to the mainstream power centers of American society. And yet the problems that they are dealing with are as serious to them as any problems faced by rich and powerful people in Washington or New York or Chicago.
In this story, Hurston also develops archetypal themes. Here's how the Princeton Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics defines archetype. In poetry, an archetype may be any idea, character, action, object, institution, event, or setting containing essential characteristics which are primitive, general, and universal, rather than sophisticated, unique, and particular. Birth, coming of age, love, guilt, redemption, and death are archetypal subjects.
An archetype is a fundamental, basic pattern of human consciousness and behavior that is found across different historical periods and in different civilizations, in different societies, from different geographical regions.
In the Guilded Sixbits, Hurston begins by setting up a situation of love, happiness, and innocence, reminiscent of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. We have Joe and Missy May, the newlywed couple, happy in their little home together, and then the introduction of the city slicker, Otis D. Slimmons, playing the archetypal role of the evil seducer, the serpent in the garden. Notice that evil here is represented by a character associated with the city, and also by a character associated with money. Otis Slimmons with his $quarter-and-half gilded to look like gold pieces. But there's also a foreshadowing of this theme of the corrupting force of money right at the beginning of the story, which opens with a scene of Joe coming home from work on a Saturday and throwing silver dollars into the open front door to begin a ritual game of flirtation that he and Missy May play each week. A recurrent theme in the works of high modernist writers is the corrupting influence of money, materialism, greed, all these things associated with urbanization and the new lifestyles of the masses in the cities.
The archetypal scene that I see in the Guilded Sixbits reminds me of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, with the husband, Joe, and his wife, Missy, who is seduced by a big city slicker who plays the role of the serpent in the garden. In addition to the implicit criticism of greed, materialism, and big city values in the Guilded Sixbits, there is also, I think, an ironic, nuanced criticism of racism.
After the Civil War, during the period of Reconstruction, African Americans in the South gained political power for the first time. This provoked a white backlash that took many forms, including the restriction of voting rights through the enactment of grandfather clauses and other unconstitutional laws, and also vigilante actions by mobs who tortured and killed thousands of black men. Since there were no trials in lynchings, it's impossible to tell how many of these victims were guilty of the crimes they were accused of, but the ever-present threat of violent death at the hands of white mobs was an important factor in contributing to the great migration of African Americans from the rural South to cities in the North in the first decades of the 20th century. The stereotype of the black man as a sexual predator and as a danger to white women circulates widely in popular culture to the present day.
Here, Hurston deploys this stereotype, but she reverses it. The idea among European Americans that black men were attracted irresistibly to white women arguably expresses a fear about the reverse, that white women might be attracted to black men. And that's exactly the situation in Chicago, according to Otis D. Slimmons, who claims that the rich white women of Chicago are so attracted to him that he almost has to beat them away with a stick. Of course, we know that Otis D. Slimmons is not a reliable witness on his own behalf. But Joe seems to believe him, and there's a humorous critical irony in Joe's gullibility, and I would say also in the psychological effect that it has on Missy. That is, I think Missy May might never have been seduced by Otis D. Slimmons had not Joe been so impressed with his money and his stories of sexual conquests in the big city.
Finally, I want to call attention to the ending of the story and to Missy May's redemption. In John Milton's Paradise Lost, the story of Adam and Eve and the fall in the garden, after Adam and Eve disobey God by eating the forbidden fruit, they think that they are going to die immediately. But they don't die immediately. They have to learn to live in a fallen world. Something like that happens in the Guilded Sixbit. Missy May thinks that having betrayed Joe, she's going to be abandoned and exiled. But that's not what happens. Joe doesn't kick her out, but their relationship changes. They can never again have the spirit of youthful innocence that they had in their relationship before the betrayal. And Missy May is finally redeemed by the bearing of a son who, we're assured, looks like Joe. By becoming parents, Joe and Missy May, in a sense, come of age. They become real grown-ups. With that, I'll conclude this webcast. But, as always, if you have questions or comments, send me an email.